Okay, 6.1, periodic functions and their properties. Okay, so we're going to go through some definitions and then we're going to go through some examples on how to calculate these. All right, so first we have a periodic function, and this is just a function who repeats itself. Okay, so we're going to be looking mostly at waves. Okay, you see that these waves, they repeat themselves. Okay, so we have a repetitive pattern based on the y values, and our x values change by the same amount. Okay, then we have the period. Okay, so the period is how long it takes for the function to repeat itself. Okay, so a period is considered one cycle. So if we ask for the period, we want to know how long it takes to do one cycle. Okay, then we have the equation of the axis, which I often call the EOA, so the equation of the axis. And what this is the horizontal line that goes through the middle of the function. If you need to calculate this, what you do is take the maximum value, add the minimum value, and divide it by 2. Okay, but often you could just look at a periodic function and you can see where that middle line is. It's kind of like the axis of symmetry, which you learned in grade 10, except for axis of symmetry goes vertical. This is a horizontal line. Okay, then we have the amplitude, and the amplitude goes from the equation of the axis up to the highest point, or from the equation of the axis down to the lowest point. Okay, so it's the difference between the maximum and minimum values. It's the vertical distance from the axis to the maximum or minimum value. So exactly what I said. So from the middle line, so the equation of the axis, up to the highest point, or from the equation of the axis to the lowest point. Okay, so we'll do them and show you with some examples. Okay, so the first example here, state whether or not the following graphs are periodic. So do they repeat themselves? So the first one here, we have a line. Okay, we have a linear function. There is nothing repetitive in this because the y values do not repeat themselves. So this one is not a periodic function. Okay, then we have B. Okay, so we have this wave here. So it goes from highest 5 to lowest 5, up to 5, down to 5. Okay, so it goes from -5, +5, -5, +5. So you can see that the y values repeat themselves. So this one is a periodic function. Okay, so that's if you're just looking at a graph, and it's pretty straightforward in how you can see if it is a periodic function or not. Okay, then we get to table of values, which might be a little bit trickier to, I guess, visualize. So going back to the definition, so the y values repeat themselves, and the x values go up in the same amount. Okay, so if we look at this first one here, do the y values repeat themselves? In this case, they do not. Our x values do go up in the same amount. They go up by 1s here, but our y values do not repeat themselves. So this one is not periodic. Okay, if you're not sure, just graph it out. Okay, so if I were to graph this, so 4 and 2, 5 and 1, 6 and 3, 0 and 7 and 0, and then 8 and 4. So it goes like this. Oops, sorry. So this does not repeat itself. Okay, our y values are growing as we go. Okay, next one. So do our y values repeat themselves? In this case, they do. So -2, +2, -2, +2, -2. And our x values are going up by 1s. So this one is, so yes. Okay, and if you're not sure again, graph it out. So -8, -2, -7, +2, -6. So it looks something like this. Okay, so that would repeat itself. Okay, moving on to now some other examples. So for here, we are going to state the following: the period, the equation of the axis, the amplitude, and the range. Okay, so I'm just going to do a rough sketch here. This gives us a visualization. So -4 and -2. Okay, so -4, 2 would be somewhere along here. Then we have -2 and -3. So here, 0, -2, 2, -1, and we have 4, -2. Okay, so it looks something like this, and if this table would continue, this would then create a wave pattern, both left and right, so it would repeat itself. Okay, so in this case, what is our period? So how long does it take to go from this point to where it, before it repeats itself? So if we start here at -4, okay, then it goes up and then back down to -4. Sorry, it goes, so at -4, -2, so it goes down, then up, and then back to the spot. And then after this point, it would then repeat itself. So we go from -4 to +4. So if we were to count the spaces, so we have 4 spaces here, and another 4 spaces, so our period would be 8. Okay, because after this, so some students might think it's from -4 to 0, because I said, well, it hits -2 again, but it doesn't repeat itself after that point. It repeats itself after you hit +4. Okay, so then the cycle would start again. So this one, our period is 8. So the equation of the axis is our middle line. Okay, so it's the horizontal line that goes through the middle of the function. Okay, so this one you can actually just look at it, and you should notice that it goes through where we have -2. Okay, so our equation of the axis is y equals -2, but I'm going to show you with the equation. So the equation says take the maximum value plus the minimum value and divide by 2. So our maximum value in this case is -1. Our lowest value is here, -3, and divide by 2. So -1 plus a -3 is -4, divided by 2 is -2. Okay, so the equation of the axis is y equals -2. Okay, then we have our amplitude. So going back to the definition, the amplitude is from the equation of the axis up to the highest point, or from the equation of the axis down to our lowest point. So it's this section here. So this is our middle line. And if we were to go to our highest point, we just have to indicate how far this is. Or we go from the middle point down to the lowest point. So our equation of the axis down to the lowest point, and we just state how wide this is. Okay, so we go from -2 up to -1, so the amplitude would be 1, or we go from the equation of the axis down 1, so our amplitude is still 1. So in this case, it's just 1. Okay, don't worry about positive or negatives in this case. We're just going to say how far it is from the equation of the axis up to the lowest point, or from the equation of the axis down to our lowest point. Okay, and now we want our range, right? Going back to chapter 1. So YER. Okay, so it's YER if it's all Y values, or we have to state the restrictions. So we go from as high as -1 and as low as -3. So Y is greater than or equal to -3, but less than or equal to -1. Okay, that's number one. Okay, second example here. So now we have the graph. Okay, so the period, so how long does it take to repeat itself? So here I usually just pick two of the highest points or two of the lowest points and then count in between. So the easy ones to pick are these lowest points. So it goes up, then down, and then after it hits this point here, it then goes up and down again. Okay, so our one cycle would be from this valley here to this other valley. Okay, so now we have to count how long it is to take one cycle. So here is at negative 180. So we go from negative 180 to 0. And then from 0, we go another 180. So in total, it'd be 180 plus 180, which is 360. In this case, it would be degrees. Okay, so 360 degrees. Okay, then the equation of the axis, again, it's the middle. So here, if you look at the graph, it goes from 4, as high as 4 and as low as 3. So the middle line would be at 3.5. So, and if you're not sure, just add them together. So 4 plus 3 is 7, divided by 2, 3.5. So the equation of the axis is y equals 3.5. Okay, now our amplitude, again, from the middle line to our lowest point, or from our middle line to our highest point. So from the equation of the axis to the lowest point is 0.5, and from the equation of the axis to our highest point is also 0.5. So our amplitude is 0.5. Okay, and lastly, our range. So it rotates between positive 4 and positive 3 as our low values and high values. So YER, such that y is greater than or equal to positive 3, but less than or equal to positive 4. Okay, second last example. So again, period. So easy, either take the two highest points or take the two lowest points. That's usually the easiest to do. So I'm just going to take the two lowest points again. So we have from here, from negative 90, it goes up to the highest point and then down to its lowest point, and then it would go up again and down again. So it would repeat after it hit this point. So we go from negative 90 to positive 270. So 90 plus 270 gives you 360 once again. And these are in degrees. Okay, the equation of the axis is the middle. Okay, this one's not as easy to see. So it goes from positive 1 to negative 5. So we have to find the middle value. So I'm just going to use the equation on this one. So the maximum is 1 plus our lowest value. So our highest is 1. Our lowest is negative 5 divided by 2. So we have 1 minus 5, which is negative 4, divided by 2 is negative 2. So the equation of the axis goes through negative 2. Sorry, I forgot to put y equals here. So y equals negative 2. Okay, amplitude once again. From the middle line, the equation of the axis up to the highest point is our amplitude, or from the middle line down to our lowest point, which is also our amplitude. Again, it's always positive. Don't worry about the positive or negatives, or in this case. So we go from negative 2 up to 1. So we go 1, 2, 3 spaces. So our amplitude is 3. And lastly, our range. So YER. So our lowest point is negative 5 here. And our highest value is 1. So greater than or equal to 5, but less than or equal to 1. Okay, last example here. I know it's getting a little bit repetitive, but this is the last one. So again, period, either take the two lowest values or take two highest values. I'll just do highest values this time, just to change it up. So we go from here from 0, and then it repeats itself after this point. So from here at 0, it goes down, then it goes back up, and after it hits the highest point again, it would then repeat down and then up. So our period goes from 0 to 90, which is 90 degrees. Okay, equation of the axis, again from the halfway between the highest point and lowest point. So this one again is a little bit tough to see. So we have from +3 to -4. So it's actually a change of 7 and divide by 2. So let's do this in the formula. So from 3 plus a -4 divided by 2. So 3 minus 4 is -1 divided by 2 is -0.5. So our equation actually goes through -0.5. Okay, so now our amplitude, again, from the equation of the axis up to our highest point, or from the equation of the axis to our lowest point. Okay, so if we count upwards, so we have 1, 2, 3, and a half. Or we count this way, so half, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. Okay, so 3 spaces plus a half is 3.5. Okay, and lastly, our range. Lowest value is -4, highest value is 3, and that is your range. Okay, I'm just going to double check the questions once again for the homework. So give me one moment. So we have page 352, number 1 and 2. So 1 good, 2 is good, 4 is fine, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so that all work. So page 352, 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, that's the end of the lesson, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.